copy from Dr. L. Vernon Briggs' book, History of Shipbuilding on the North River. Anybody familiar with it? This book? This is how I got started. When I read this book, when I was about your age, I was fascinated. You live in a town on the North River where for 175 years, shipbuilding. See, can you see that top left corner, what it says? Anybody familiar with that part of Norwell, off of River Street? Okay. Fall along the river, and you see it's a second herring brook. Got that? Blockhouse Lane, or Blockhouse Shipyard, you got that. Union Bridge, Union Street. So this book, again, 1889, he's showing where in about a 2-mile stretch, there's about 6 different shipyards here, okay? Now, this map was drawn in 1947. A man by the name of Henry Howe was writing what he called the archaeology of the North River. 1947. Now, if you look, I wish the hell I could find my pointer. At the very top, can you see where it says Cohasset? Then you see below it Hatherley, Situate Harbor, Greenfield, Neil Gate, which you're familiar with, both of you, right? You grew up in that neighborhood. You see this, and then to the left, what does it say, Bob?
I can't read it.
Henderson's. Henderson's.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the site this stuff came from. It's called the Hendersons because that's who lived on Blockhouse Lane. By the way, I should apologize. I want to thank Nancy Joseph for donating or gifting the stuff.
I'm not Nancy Joseph.
No, this is Janet. Janet Watson is the archivist for the Norwell Historical. I want to thank her for allowing me to be part of this. But Nancy Joseph's family, and Bob, you know them well, and you do too, collected all this. They lived on Blockhouse Lane. Now, any of this information, I can give you the link. You can download this. You can download this book on your iPad or your computer for free. You can download the actual bulletin where Henry Howe wrote what I'm about to tell you. So what did he do? He starts in Cohasset. Now, he's an amateur archaeologist, so he's actually doing archaeological excavation, not what we call surface picking, which is what this stuff is. This is stuff they just plow in the field, the tree fell down, you picked it up. They didn't do any archaeological digging. He starts with Cohasset, and he said Cohasset was a small winter village. You'll understand why that's important in a minute. And he says, see Hatherley? He said, there's a part, I think it's still called Indian Trail in that part of Situate. It's about a 2-mile road from, say, Hatherley on the beach to Cohasset, a little inland. I'll wait. Always wait for a history teacher. Of all the teachers I had in high school, the only ones I remember, my history teachers. Again, if you look up at the top, this is from the Massachusetts Archaeological Society Bulletin, 1948. But in 1947, Henry Howe is starting a project, the archaeology of the North River. So in Cohasset, he said there's a winter village. Now, the reason I'm calling it a winter village, we are always taught in history and archaeology, Native Americans are hunter-gatherers. What does that mean? You're migrating with the seasons. You've got a winter place to live, but then you're migrating spring and summer. For example, in Pembroke, the ponds, the herring are running. But in the winter, they went back to their winter camp, and then those people, it would be the Blue Hills. I want you to underline Blue Hills. We're going to come back to that, and you're going to get a history lesson. But this is different. He says, okay, they were on the beach in Scituate in the spring and summer fishing, but then they went back to the winter camp in Cohasset. Well, what about the other places? Well, when he got to the Henderson site, and we have Bob Merritt here who knows the area well, and Mr. Rosa knows the area well because you guys grew up with these people. In the article, Henry House says, this is the largest Native American village in eastern Massachusetts. It's a half a mile long. I don't know of another site. I do not know another site that big. I know sites in Middleborough, I know sites in Bridgewater, I know sites in Ipswich, I know sites in Pembroke, Duxbury, Kingston, pick a town. Not a half a mile. And a winter village. That's critical because that's telling me this is where all the small spring and summer camps migrated back to spend the winter, which is why the stuff you're seeing on these tables is about 5% of the entire collection just from the Henderson site. He's calling it the largest privately owned, non-cataloged collection. And my job is to change the non to cataloged, and that's what you're going to help me do. So if you're interested, what you're going to be hopefully learning so that we can learn together the answer to these questions. Every historian or an archaeologist needs answers to 6 questions. Do you know what the 6 questions are? Who, what, when, where, how, and why, right? That's it. We only need answers to 3. Who, what, lithics, and that tells us when. Because once you identify the lithic, and once you identify the age, we know who made it. Now, why is that important, do you think? Who cares who made it? Tony Stark, write that down. I am not letting you off that easy. Any idea? The adults, you're allowed to, speak up. Why is it important? Why do I need to know who made this stuff or when it was made? You think they all came at the same time from the same place?
Once you understand who made it, you can get a sense of why they made it and what they're doing with it.
No, I already know that. If I said to you, this is an axe, pretty sure I know what it's for. What I don't know is how old is it? I know that's an axe, see? But you're close. Okay. Let me back up a minute. If this is a winter camp, which I know it is, half a mile, that's a lot of people. And when I say half a mile, excuse me, that's an estimate. Anybody not know where Bridge Street is? Quarter of a mile on either side of Bridge Street. Basically from Blockhouse Lane to Neal Gate. And you were telling me about Neal Gate earlier, right? Who was it? It was plowing the field there, Bob, and finding all artifacts, right? Blockhouse Lane, that's the site, okay. So, what the importance of knowing the age of these artifacts is you're going to find they come from different time periods. By the way, that's the site today. Just to give you an idea of where we are on the river. This is the guide I'm going to hand you about projectile points. Who's my projectile team? Can I call you Tony? Would have made it a hell of a lot easier remembering. You sure? So, tools, I'm going to give you a whole thing. Lithics, I'm going to give you a whole thing. All right? But for now, There's your guide. So in other words, when we start, you've got this to show you an idea of the range. But more importantly, you're going to be working from this, because every picture in this book is life size. So if we came up to the table and I took one of these and I held it on, look what it opened up to. I didn't do it on purpose, but okay. Where are you, Tony? Here you go, okay. What did I say it was, a start point? How did I know? Here, you tell me, what is it? I think we have a match. See how easy your job's gonna be? Okay, and your lithics, guys, in the back of this book is multiple pages of all different kinds of lithics where it came from. Tools. Different book. Where'd it go? You're gonna have a guide that looks something like this. And you're gonna see pictures of things. See? Those. See them? So far, so good? Okay, now. What do you think that is? Remember that? There's your atlatl. Why is this important? Oh, every one of the points you're looking at is on an atlatl dart. I might have arrowheads. I haven't dated anything that new, but I got a lot of them. I got a lot to go through. Okay, so these were atlatl darts, and that's how you make an atlatl dart. See the weight, Bob, I was talking about? Doesn't have to be drilled through, you could tie it on. So the weight is a counterbalance because of that long dart, okay? And that's how you'd hold it. This is how you hunt it. You missed, your wife's gonna be hitting you upside the head for not bringing home dinner. All right, lateral weights. Atlatl weight. Where's my tool people? Tell me what you. Oh, sorry, you want to get that so I don't step on it on you. Tell me what you think of that. What do you notice? That's a broken one. But you can see in the diagram. See the top left corner? Yeah. That's what you're holding. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? What is wrong with the hole?
It doesn't go all the way through.
Thank you. Your name is?
Anya.
Anya, I like you so much better than him now. It's unfinished. What happened? By the way, notice the shape? See the top right, bottom right? Whale tail atlatl. See that? Right there. All right, that's how you hunt it. Again, knowing what the tool is and what it's for makes it a heck of a lot easier to identify it. And there's the very broken one I was showing you. So what I'm going to show you is pictures of these tools and then the examples we have here. So there's your atlatl. What do you think those are? Bob, you cannot answer. You know what those are. See the picture? That match? Right? What do you think that is? No hint? No. Okay, nobody ever went fishing? Did you go fishing? Do you have a weight on your line? Clumsy plummet. This is your fishing weight or net weight, because they not only fished high, so they would catch waterfowl with nets. So there's a bunch of ducks or geese or whatever sitting on a pond, and they would scare them, raise the net, and here's the weights. So now that you know what those are, what the heck is that? 2 hands, it's very heavy. Speak up. Mm-mm. Look at the shape, look at the picture on the screen. Does that look familiar? Looks the same to me, doesn't it? Let me ask you a question. Is the North River a tidal river? Which means it's doing this. If you're in a boat and you don't want to do this, what do? You have an anchor. And that's what that is. The point I'm making is, are you following the pattern here? They're fishing on the river in a canoe or mashoon, and they need an anchor because it's a tidal river. So that's what that tool is. Questions so far? And again, me diagramming, we have what is in that book. Next one. Anybody want to guess what those are? You can't read it. It says Celt, C-E-L-T. Hatchet. That says 3/4 grooved axe. Look familiar? You gotta have an axe to cut down a tree. Now, how do you make a canoe? Anybody ever seen it done? They do it at Pilgrim Pawtuxet a lot. You've seen it? Well, you got to cut it down first, right? Then what do you do to the tree? You light a fire. And then what do you do when the tree is burning? The hint is the term. Now you know why we say a dugout canoe? You use a tool called a celt or a gouge. Now this would be attached to a stick. So it would be like a tool to, burn your hands. So here's the tools to make the dugout. The mashoon is the native term. Well, we've got the weights to go fishing, we've got the anchor, we've got the axe, we've got the canoe. Right? Everything you need. And there's my diagramming. We have an example of what is in the book. And more celts or gouges. I brought 5. There's dozens of them in the collection. Okay? Any clue what that is? I told somebody already. I think I told you. What do you think that is? I know it's weird looking, but how do I make a hole in a piece of stone? That's what, no. Here we go. So I want to make a hole. I'm going to drill a hole in that. See it? Or that. Or that. Or that unfinished lateral weight. Well, I got to drill a hole. What am I going to use? And so help me. If you say Milwaukee or Ryobi, you're out of here. Where's my geologist? Right? You like lithics, right? Okay, so if I'm going to drill a hole, I'm going to use a piece of stone to drill a hole in a piece of stone. What do I need to know about the material that the drill is made out of? Well, it better be harder than the thing I'm drilling a hole in. They already know more about geology than I do. I would not be able to tell you what this is versus what this is, but they knew enough to go, this is harder than this. And how am I going to drill this? Well, you see the grooves? Anybody ever learn how to start a fire? That's how, see? That's how you drill a hole. Once again, I'm showing you examples. Everything that's in the book is here. And there's your timeline. So how do we know ages? So the oldest, called Paleo, It says 10 to 12 BP stands for before present. So in other words, 10 to 12,000 years ago. How come I don't have anything older than 12,000 years?
They weren't here yet.
Why weren't they here yet?
They hadn't crossed the land bridge yet.
Oh, that land bridge lie again. So I was in AP history class in the 10th grade at Silver Lake, and they said to me, 13,500 years ago, they crossed the Siberian land bridge. First of all, the land bridge was 34 miles wide. That ain't a bridge. I've lived in towns smaller than that. 13,000 years ago is when they estimate the ice corridor of the last glacial maximum was available. Then how come I have human footprints in White Sands, New Mexico that are 22,000 years old? I have points at Meadowcroft in Pennsylvania. You know where that is, right near Pittsburgh, that are 16,000 years old. I have points from Galt, Texas, 16,000 years ago. Did they come across the land bridge? I don't think so. But 12,000 years ago is when the last glacial maximum was receding enough so this area wasn't under ice. If you tried to come here 15 or 16,000 years ago, you're under between 1 and 2 miles of ice. Where do you think all this water came from? You ever been to Plymouth? They say in Plymouth there's a lake, pond, river, or stream for every day of the year because they have 360 different fresh water entities. You have the North River. You have the herring brooks. How many ponds? Pembroke. I can take you to, if you go to Plymouth and you go into the park where the industrial park used to be, you'll still see the springs bubbling up out of the ground. Where did all that water come from? The ice. So you were right. We don't have anything older than 12 because there was no land available. But what do you think it looked like? What do you think this area looked like 12,000 years ago? After the ice melted, what's left? Nothing. No trees, no plants, a lot of rocks, a lot of water. It scraped the ground. You ever seen any like really big rocks around here, like we have at the Herring Run? They're called glacial erratics. Those were left by the receding glacier. I call them illegal aliens because the damn things are probably from Canada. They were brought down here. So that's why our oldest is 12. Now, there are paleo sites in, anybody ever been to Ipswich, Mass, up on the North Shore? Yes? Okay, so Ipswich, half a mile from the ocean, there's a site called Bull Brook. Peabody Essex Museum has an active dig there, okay? But 13,000 years ago, Bull Brook was about 25 miles from the ocean. Okay? They're finding paleo points. And the thing about them is they're made from flint. Now this insignificant looking little stone I'm showing you is flint. Why am I calling it the most important thing in this entire collection other than this piece of green flint? The flint comes from the Hudson River Valley in New York. Why? There's no flint in Massachusetts. This is the gold standard for making tools, lighting fires. How long have humans been lighting fires? As long as they wanted to stay warm and cook. And this is the thing that starts your fire. But flint is the best material for making tools or points. Well, how come we don't have it in Massachusetts? Anybody have any idea? I'm open to suggestions. Come on, give me a hint. What do you think? Why is the geology different on the coast of Massachusetts than it is from New York? I got a winner! I knew I liked this kid. 400 million years ago, This is the American plate. This is Europe and Africa, and they did this. Are you ready for this? What's the oldest mountains on Earth? And Berkshires. 400 million years ago. 150 million years ago, they separated, and when they did, the geology it left behind, from Nova Scotia to Virginia, from Norway to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, all the same, no flint. Welcome to Europe. You know how much money I just saved to have that book a flight? You're in Western Europe right now. So that's the timeline. But the thing is, we're finding flint points in Ipswich, in Middleborough, in Pembroke. Or they brought it with them. Remember I said, why is it important to find out who made this stuff? And I said, they didn't all come here at the same time from the same place. All right, so we know, but here's a great question for you. Ipswich? Why? 12,000 years ago, why are Native Americans with flint, 3-4-inch flint points in Ipswich? I mean, why? Because it's on the migration route of the caribou that they're following. It's an insignificant little detail, but you're a hunter-gatherer. You're migrating with the thing you're hunting, which is why the flint from New York is in Pembroke, Middleborough, Ipswich. What they didn't know when they got here, they were not going to be able to get any more of it. So they had to find something else. Where's my geologist? The word is chert, C-H-E-R-T. That's common stone. It's flint's cousin, but it's not as good, but it's better than not having any. So now they start looking for other types of material. Now, my geology team is going to be taught to recognize the following types of lithics. Now, think about this. You know where I'm talking. We're here in Norwell. Where are these lithics coming from? Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Maine, Marblehead. You know where Marblehead, Mass is? A long way from Norwell. They really like this Marblehead rhyolite. You're going to see a ton of it. Saugus jasper. I've got lithic from places you may or may not have heard of. How about Mattapan? How about Braintree? How about Hingham? How about the Blue Hills? But it's all here. Why is it all here at our little village on the North River? What do you think? Let me back up a bit. What makes this site, and basically there's Bridge Street, a quarter of a mile on either end of it. Why is that site such an important place to build a half-a-mile village? What does it have to offer? It checks the 3 boxes. First of all, water. How important is the North River? It's the Native American highway. Anybody go kayaking or canoeing or boating on the river? So if you put your kayak, canoe, or boat where the North River hits the ocean, Route 3A, Marshfield, Scituate, and if you follow the ancient trail and you take it to the end, where do you end up?
There's also a spring on the Henderson property.
That's why they were there, fresh water. But where is that waterway going to take you when you're done? Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island, where Massasoit, great leader, lived. Because if you looked at the earlier map, see all the rivers? Now think about it. in pre-colonial times, when Europeans weren't here and the rivers and streams aren't being dammed, there's a lot more water and a lot more easier access. So right there is where the North River hits the ocean, right? Say Situate. See it? Top right-hand corner, Situate Harbor. Now follow the river. See it says North River. You see where it says Pembroke Ponds? Can you see where it says Titicut? You ever heard that term? Ever heard that word? Bridgewater. Native American word, Bridgewater. Titicut. That's what they called the area. Where is it sitting? The Taunton River. Where does the Taunton River end? Narragansett Bay. So, how long would it take you to walk from Situate to Rhode Island? The hell with that. I got a canoe. So there would be places of portage where you'd have to carry. What about all those other rivers? Can you read the one that says Neponset? Ever heard that term? Neponset. That's Boston. There's the Charles River. You know that's Boston. The 3 Mile, you could literally go anywhere you want. This is like being on the interchange. You know, what exit am I taking to get on 195 to go? Okay, there's your highway. But why, again, here? Well, you also have a land route because 123 Main Street hits Route 53, right? Assinippie. Route 53 is the native migration trail from the Blue Hills down to Pembroke and eventually Plymouth. So you got a water route, you got a land route, and Bridge Street is a fording place. And it's high ground. Anybody walk the Norris Preserve? Okay, you know the old boathouse? Look across the river. It's up higher. That's a site. If you look across, that's just about where Blockhouse Lane is. And then keep going till you get to the other end of Bridge Street. By the way, Bridge Street turns into Union Street, Marshfield. There are 2 Native American sites I know have been excavated on Union Street and Marshfield. I wonder where those natives spent the winter. Continuing down Union Street, Marshfield brings you into Pembroke. I could plot a map and show you all the native sites we know of. If we just started Cohasset and going down the river, across Union Street, Pembroke Center. Anybody skate at the Hobmark Arena? Pembroke? See, when I was in high school, we didn't have a hockey team. We didn't have a rink. We had a bog. That doesn't count. So you all the way to Plymouth, all the way back to, actually, yeah, this is the one. All the way to, look, Titicut, Bridgewater. Major archaeological sites in Bridgewater that I know of. Okay? And these are documented. They're in bulletins. I could tell you about it. But all the way down to Mount Hope, Rhode Island. So here's a quick history diversion. Am I allowed one? Okay. Tell me about the first Thanksgiving. What do you know? What happened? What happened? Yeah, the Pilgrims didn't celebrate holidays. So they're having a harvest festival, right? Did anybody show up that wasn't a pilgrim? Massasoit with 90 heavily armed warriors. There are 52 survivors of the first winter, and almost twice as many Native Americans show up armed to the teeth. And Bradford says in his own book, how am I going to feed these people? See, the white man didn't invite the poor starving Indian to dinner. Massasoit was coming to do what he promised he would do. Because in 1621, they signed a mutual defense treaty on Leiden Street in Plymouth. Anybody attacks you, I come to your defense. Anybody attacks me, I come to their defense. Why am I telling you this? Massasoit lives in Mount Hope, Rhode Island. That's a 2-day canoe ride to Plymouth. How the hell did he show up in Plymouth the day of the harvest festival? Because he's 2 hours away at his daughter's house in Middleborough. Why is he showing up fully armed to the teeth? Because the scouts said the English are firing their guns. Massasoit is coming to defend his white allies. Put that in the history book. And that's why Thanksgiving is a national day of mourning for Native Americans who say, what have we got to be thankful for? Okay? Now, is that how you were taught Thanksgiving in history class? Because that's not how I was taught. But that is the fact. It's in Bradford's own handwriting. Well, remember that thing about they didn't have enough food? Massasoit's people killed 4 deer. They sat down and had dinner. That's how important that river system is. You could go from Mount Hope, Rhode Island, all the way to Plymouth Harbor, 2 days. Questions so far? I'm not that good. You got to have a question. Trust me, I'm not that good. You know I'm not that good, right? Okay. I don't have to get that hammer to prove it, do I? Any questions? Nothing, right? Okay. Have I got you excited about history yet? Don't lie to me. I'll move next door to you and ruin your property value. I love that line. Lysix team, check it out. What does that say? Marblehead rhyolite. Look at the top. Can you see what it says? Saugus jasper. It's not pure jasper. It's really a rhyolite because the real jasper comes from Pennsylvania. Get to know this. Get to love this because this is what you're going to be doing. Identifying those points made from just 2 examples of lithics. I've got multiple pages of lithics that you can compare from places called Nantasket, Hingham, Braintree, Maine, etc.
What does it say?
Again,
What is the 2 names?
you're going to get copies of this.
Okay.
Marblehead rhyolite, you can't miss it. When you see it, you're going to go right away. You're going to know. See the speckles? And the red of the jasper, it'll jump off the page. Let me, hey, geology, what's that made out of? Look at it. Dead on, right? See how easy it is to see, you guys you got the easy part, man. You got a cheat sheet and everything. Okay, so that's an example of Marblehead rhyolite, okay? I probably have in somewhere some jasper. Okay. Look at this picture. These are actual points, and this is the case the picture was taken from. So they came out of this box. What's that stuff in the bottom right-hand corner? Want a hint? Look at the top of the page. Look at the bottom right-hand corner. What do you notice? Saugus jasper. Those 3 right there, right? You know where Saugus is? How far is that to Norwell? What's it doing here? How did it get here? You're in Norwell, Route 1 in Norwell. Know it well. It's on the ocean, isn't it? Yeah. How long do you think it would take in a canoe to go from there to here? Not that long. Okay? Trade. Because remember, the importance of our site is not just the fact that it was a half-a-mile long village. It's a trading center. It's the Hanover Mall of Norwell. Everybody's coming here and they're trading. I need something you need something I have. What have I got you don't have? Well, it might be flint. In the museum in Middleborough, there's a copper axe that's 4,000 years old. It was found in Kingston. Where's the nearest copper mine? That would be the Great Lakes. In Pembroke, in my museum, I have one. And in Middleborough, they have 2 projectile points made from obsidian. What is obsidian? Where's the nearest volcano? That would be the Rocky Mountains. How the hell is it in Pembroke, in Middleborough? Obsidian is they were using obsidian sharper than steel. I mean, that stuff they were literally being used as knives because it's so sharp. But it would be extremely rare, as would the copper. You know about the Iceman that they found at 6,000? Utsi had a copper axe, right? They think they might have been killed for the axe. 4,000 years ago, somebody in Kingston had a copper axe? That's rare. Although there was a lot of trading going on, because there are documented cases of Europeans visiting North America and writing about the copper jewelry the natives were wearing. Where the hell are they getting the copper? Trade. So where did these people come from? We know southwest to east migration. They didn't come this way. They came this way. How do we know? They not only brought their technology with them. You're going to see, I'm going to give you a hint. Where's my projectile team? You're going to find the answer to this question. When you look at all this stuff and you document what it is and how old it is, you're going to see a pattern where a lot of this stuff comes from a very small range of years. Now look at this chart again. Okay? You know, I'm assuming you know what I mean when it says contact period. You know, Massasoit stood up on a rock in Plymouth and he said, "Here come the English. Here goes the neighborhood." Contact period, 400 years. What do you think? I know this is a trick question. You're going to find, as I said, a large chunk of this stuff comes from a very small window of time. Why? There's a site in Norwell that was excavated. It's called Oak Island. Norwell, Pembroke line. Next time you're on the expressway and you're going north and you cross the North River in Marshfield, look to your right. That's Oak Island. When the archaeologist actually did the dig, he stratified what he found. Now listen, first layer was humus and organic. Second layer, yellow sand, and he's finding artifacts. Third layer, sterile. Fourth layer, artifacts. The deeper, the older. The oldest artifacts are late Paleo. What's the year? 9,000 to 10,000 years ago. That's me. They're looking for me, and I said, "I'm offline, don't text me." Sorry about that. Well, that means that 9,000 to 10,000 years ago, they were on the river. It was a fishing camp. Tons of artifacts, but let me say this again. Artifact, sterile artifact. What happened in that sterile window where there was nobody here? They were here before, they were here after. There's a block of time when they weren't here. That block of time that's missing is somewhere in the late Archaic. So I'm going to give you a cheat sheet right now. You're going to find that a lot of this stuff falls in an age time frame of between transitional Archaic and late Archaic, which proves what I'm about to tell you about who were they and where did they come from. We know 12,000 years ago, they're in Ipswich, they're in Middleborough, they're in Pembroke. Small, very small groups of literal hunter-gatherers. But then we have our village, half a mile long, and that's a permanent settlement. Well, you're going to notice a pattern. I want you to look for patterns. Why You're looking at this stuff and you go, look, I'm finding a lot of points from this time frame. I'm finding a lot of the tools from the same time frame. Axes, celts, plummets. They brought their technology, they brought their tools, and they brought how they buried their dead. It's called secondary cremation burials. We know this. We have the sites. Unfortunately, we know the sites in Middleborough because before the law prevented them from doing it, they dug them up. And if you read Dr. Robinson's book, he says out of grave number 3, we got this and with what I call ceremonial points. But these are cremation burials. We know those people migrated from Pennsylvania, New York, from the west to the east. Now, why do you think they migrated west to east? What was it about Pennsylvania they didn't like that they had to come here? You know, because you kind of said it earlier. What did I tell you they were doing up in Ipswich 12,000 years ago? They're following the pattern, the caribou migration. Second of all, we know there was a major drought about 5,000 years ago in that time period in that part of the world. So follow the animals because they're smarter than we are. Where are they going? They're going where there's water and green grass, and welcome to New England. Here you go. So you're going to find this gap, this sterile period, which I don't know if we'll ever be able to answer that question. Why did that happen? We don't know. We don't know. But that is the only site that ever popped up where, whoa, we didn't know this. Because usually you read, when you're on an archaeological dig and you do a grid and you're measuring how deep down you're going and you label everything and you, oh, by the way, none of that was done here. Did I mention that? This is an archaeologist's worst nightmare. It's a great thing to have it, but it's a terrible thing the way it was gotten, because as soon as they picked it up and threw it in a box, there goes my provenance. I cannot prove, for example, was this found with this? Probably not, because they just threw it all in a box, right? What did they, they weren't thinking, hey, we should separate this. Well, how did they find it? Was there a bunch of it over here? Was there a bunch of it over here? I asked Janet, I said, do you ever have a summer house? Anybody here have a summer house? A winter summer house on the Cape or any place? A cottage, whatever, right? You close it up for the winter, right? Did you take the furniture? Why? Coming back. What point did I just make? Why would I find a huge cache, as it's called, of artifacts buried? I'm coming back next season. Do I want to carry 300 pounds of rocks where I'm going? No, I don't have to. I got a whole nother set where I'm going. Okay? So, I gave you the hints. You're looking for these are the things you're looking for. What time frame am I finding a lot of this stuff from? Lithics team, what's it made of? Where did it come from? Tool team, how old is it? Any questions so far?